Hi everybody, this is 10 Ton Hammer. We have a special here touring Illfonic Studios today. We're looking at Revival and as an upcoming MMORPG, and we have Chris Holtorf here, which is one of the developers, kind of the lead narrative, one of the lead game designers. So
sure.
Thanks Chris for sitting down with us.
No problem.
Yep. So can you tell us a little bit how you got on the game, how this whole thing came to be?
Yeah. So I've worked with Kedron Gonzalez and Adam Maxwell, which are the two other kind of movers and shakers on this project. In the forefront for many years. I met Kedron maybe 10 years ago during Auto Assault, and I've known Adam or Snipe Hunter since high school. So we've
very cool.
Collaborated on a lot of projects, 3 other MMOs, a bunch of console stuff, and then we've also done our own stuff, but we've always kind of gone back to what we believed MMOs kind of should have been back in the day when people were starting about, maybe talking about like, maybe we can get a server and then we can all play in the world on the server and not need a dungeon master that knows everything, or and we can all just kind of be our guys, and that's not the way that games went, and we've been talking about that for 10 years, and Kedron called us up a couple of years back and was like, I kind of want to pull the trigger on making this vision happen, and reviving the idea of the virtual world. And so that's why we've avoided calling it an MMORPG, is where we don't want to carry over any baggage.
Yeah, definitely.
From
kind of ambiguous these days.
Right. And what does that mean? We don't want people to think of the core stuff. When you say MMORPG, you're like, okay, classes, hotbars, right? We don't want any of that baggage. We want people to come to it fresh and think of it as like a virtual world, or a multiplayer evolving online world.
Yes, that's the good one. I'm going to push that one. I like that one.
I like that one very much.
So
that's it. Yeah.
What is your main role with the team here, and kind of what are you in charge of as far as getting ready for the game, and are you leading anybody else in the team, or what are you producing for the game?
Yeah, I do high level and all the way down to like actual words on the page, nitty gritty lore, world development. So I wrote the Pantheon, and I choose the pieces of Lovecraft's lore that we're going to use, and the pieces of Howard's fiction and feels that they all get out of the mythos. Like I've read all of the Lovecraft, and now I'm taking the pieces of that genome that we want and kind of mixing it with the other world building stuff I've done, and creating the fantasy backdrop of Telliston.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm as somebody who's following Revival very closely, I'm really loving kind of the world building that you guys are doing so far that you've shown. What's been your favorite part about doing the lore specifically for this game?
The Pantheon's cool. It was really fun to sit for almost a month to really get an idea, maybe even more, but just the basic idea of where the gods are in regard to one another, and then what their influences are on the planet, and kind of personifying the virtues or sets of stuff that I want each power to represent. And that was really fun, because I came up with a whole pantheon that's based on Lovecraft, and then has the Telliston stuff kind of hung in there, and I got to really define the sort of flavor of what the paradigms of the people will be, and the kind of Kedron really wants the dark world, and I got to get that in there without just being like, yeah, Ravenloft, Ravenloft, where it's just like, oh, it's very dark here, everything is scary. This is more kind of creepy, but also, gray and rainy, and I don't know, there's just giving it that visceral sort of real feel has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you are trying to do horror, people try too hard, and it just doesn't come off as scary at all, and when you get that really subtle creepiness, it really pulls off well, which from seeing your guys' art so far and the lore so far, I feel that from the game already. So, cool. But with when it comes specifically to how the lore is going to impact the game, how are players going to be interacting with the narrative of the world within the context of the game?
This is actually some of the most exciting stuff, and that is that. So, on other projects, I've spent a lot of time writing things like, this is what the player will do as they go through the course of their existence, and they should have this many achievements per hour, and they should, of gameplay. And by playing after 2 weeks, they should have already encountered this guy, and this is their path. And I'm not doing that this time. What I'm doing instead is laying down all of the seeds and like the anchors, and writing out the last couple hundred years, and then before history, actually, because we have the time where it was the world was dark, and the civilizations were also shattered and separated from one another, that their calendars didn't really jive, and their histories are all separate. But I'm cataloging all of that and burying the hooks in the world, and then rather than saying this is what each player will do, I'm saying this is what this power in the world wants to achieve over the next year of real time. And I'm setting that stuff up so that when the players are in the world interacting with those first few, player weeks worth of content that we've got, those are open-ended seeds that lead to branches we've thought of. We're either going to move here, or we're going to move here, these changes can happen. But it's really what the players do in the world that determines which way we throw those switches. And then we're thinking about a month ahead, so that as you're flipping those switches for that content, we're already predictively writing the packages and the events that can be used to forward that story, thereafter. So we're always ahead of you guys.
Yeah, when you say flipping the switches, I'm pretty sure you're keying into player agency, which obviously, a lot of MMORPGs don't really do, or MMOs in general, they don't give you a lot of player agency these days. And can you talk a little bit about how the player agency is going to be different in yours? And when you kind of mentioned writing story ahead of time, can you talk about what that is inside your game?
Certainly. So one of our kind of precepts going forward is that we don't want any major world event to happen without a player having done it. So even the idea of like when you roll out a new content update, very commonly what you'll do is put in some player quests that are usually like gather some immense number of resources so that players can crank on it for a month and get their special plushies and their little things. And then you bring the server down and you bring up some new big massive change. Because we can stream content and we can stream our changes, we don't want to bring the server down if we can help it at any point. And we certainly don't want it to be, and then the world changed. We would rather set up an event that has a trigger in there in the scripting that is fairly complex and is looking for a certain set of tags and objects, and then we'll let that happen and wait for a player to be guided to that content and actually, press the button, light the candle, kill the thing, whatever you have to do to make it happen, so that someone somewhere has blood on their hands, so to speak, right? Somewhere, if what we did was massively world-changing and caused, a necromancer to spawn a bunch of undead in every major city, we want some player somewhere to be like, oh, did I do that? And if they don't, and this is a concern. We were talking about it in IRC recently. There was a study a while back published about the first ever quest, where they were saying that some very small percentage of the content was ever actually found and used by the player base, even after 10 years. And I remember speaking with a guy back at Tryon that had come over from SOE who was like, that's absolutely true. This is, and he told me all about it. And the thing is, it's sometimes players just aren't that sharp, and if you give them the clues in text, either they didn't read it, they missed that part, they forgot it. And EverQuest 1 didn't have a lot of linking together, and we are also going to have that problem because no arrows, no exclamation points. So because we know that's a concern, if someone isn't flicking the switch, and we know that they would if they were put in that position, we will start subtly and then unsubtly start pushing the more active players kind of towards that content until somebody goes in there and goes, oh, what's this? Sets it off.
Awesome.
And that's what the live storytellers are for.
Awesome. So, as a player yourself of these kind of games, what would you say is the most exciting thing for you about working on Revival, and then when you envision it kind of as a complete project, what is going to be your favorite thing about it?
The unpredictability of your daily routine, and I mean, you can be something that's very predictable, you know, a merchant or someone who gardens and then sells their stuff, and that's all they do. And by doing so, you get to keep yourself very predictable. But the fact that there's the whole world out there, and you just get to be this person, and you have great agency, and you can actually steer the world in such a way that if you were to log off, but you did something awesome, someone 2 weeks from now will be like, it was this guy, I saw him, you know, or if you make a brand new character and have never played before, you're going to log in town and be like, what do I do? And I'll meet you someplace and be like, well, I don't know, what would you like to do? And we can talk about what you want to do. Something could happen emergently right then that could just pick you up and draw you in, you know, and now stuff's happening. Or maybe some dude jumps you and now you have an enemy. You know, it's the unpredictability and the fact that you won't be able to just log into Wowhead and be like, I'm level X, what do I do next? You know? And
Definitely.
That's
awesome. Well, thanks for sitting down and talking for us a little bit. I appreciate you guys coming out and letting me come in here and visit you guys.
No worries, man.
I appreciate it, and thank you so much. I appreciate it.